Whew, 91 of Sports Shorts. And I'm so happy today to have fellow board member, conference chair, and the senior VP of at the NFL of football operations, Arthur McAfee. Welcome, Art.
Hey, thanks, Bobby. Good to be here, and I'm excited.
Well, good. Let's
Yes,
let's jump right into it.
just jump right
So,
in.
yeah, so there's sort of our opening salvo is two parts. One is to tell our audience what exactly the SVP of football operations at the NFL does, and then to talk to us about your path, which is most interesting because you've sort of been on both sides of the aisle in the football world.
Yes, I have. Very interesting. Very few people can say that. I think there are about three people that I know of that have worked on both sides, on the union side as well as the league side.
I only know one. I know
Yeah,
Buck, so that was it.
yes, yeah. We there's one other person that worked for us. Worked for the NFL Players Association when I was there in Players Inc. And then she moved over to work at the league office on the marketing side. So yeah, but Buck was the other person. So I followed his footsteps, and I'm following yours as the conference chair of the SLA annual meeting. So yes,
So let's talk about what your current gig is.
yeah. So uh, I currently serve as VP for football operations policy and governance. And what that entails is general oversight of some of our initiatives and outreach involving college athletics, particularly the transition that's happening in the college space and the impact it has on the NFL. Certainly work a lot on our pipeline initiatives in terms of career development for coaches, officials, scouts, and then lots of it with regard to our strategy uh, relating to the football operations and our ongoing what we call collaboration with the other business units, management council, who handles a lot of the labor relations, our sponsorship team and the events team, as well as our technology team in terms of game day broadcasts and the technology used to broadcast the game. And then we do a lot of collaboration with game presentation with our broadcasting unit. So we're sort of kind of all over the place. And we also work in our unit. We also control the what we consider to be the game day operations. And so this unit is involved in making sure that there's competitive balance between the teams related all the way from field surfaces to equipment to the communication related to player, coach to coach from the box, and that everything else around the stadium as it relates to the game is competitive. And we also oversee what we call our game day accountability. So when there's players who have been disciplined for fighting or hip drop tackle or those kind of things, that comes out of our office, and the procedures that work that go with that in terms of the players having an opportunity to appeal is also part of our unit. And then there's this collaboration with the medical piece, right? So the medical tent on the side, we work on the policies and procedures that work through that. So any given day could be any of all of those things. And when the season starts, it's really busy for us.
Well, having been on the TV side for a very long time, I know how busy it is.
Yes, yeah,
And it's very busy, and you're in a unique situation because, in your particular role working with your broadcasters, you have a group of people that's spending about $10 billion a year. And, it's great that the league makes that money, but that balance between protecting the shield and developing the product can be kind of tenuous at times because I know the broadcasters want to do certain things, and I think the league has to say, we're not so crazy about showing that stuff, which I
yes,
think has really served the game.
it has, right? So this is again, it's a collaboration, right? It's how the game is presented. I think most recently you may have noticed there is the uh, conversations with the coaches between halves, right? And so how much access can we give to the public from the game production is important, right? And so the breaks between plays, between touchdowns and going to commercial and coming back, right? So we monitor that. We call that pace of play, right? And sometimes when we go to break, players may be standing around for a little while longer than they normally would like to. But when we come back, I think we've worked out a system where we've got the right cutaways for breaks, commercial breaks, so we can get the commercial sponsors in, as well as making sure that the pace of the game stays close to 3 hours or so without going into overtime. So we shoot for under 3 hours, but this part is collaborative, and I think our ratings say that it's going well. So we're happy about that.
So is your group also part of the group that developed the new kickoff rule, which as a fan, I love, and as a person that's concerned about player safety, I think it's a brilliant move.
Yes.
So yes. How did you guys get to that?
Well, so part of it, again, it's a combination of working with our player health and safety group, working with our competition committee, and then the game presentation in terms of being able to present a game and present the game in continue to be in a familiar way, but also put back in place the dynamic play that a kickoff can be, right? The excitement of a kickoff and the possibility of a long return certainly energizes the fan base. And what we had seen over the last few years with the power of our kickers, the kickers being able to kick from the kickoff spot, kick it out of the end zone, and then you start it at a dead spot, and then not having returns. You're stuck between the balance, trying to find the balance of having that action, keeping the play in the game, creating a circumstance where there is a consideration for the power of the game and possible injuries, and reducing that. And so with everyone working together, a study from our data and analytics team, study from our player health and safety group, our competition committee, and then we don't necessarily have places where you can test things out before the season starts, other than preseason and training camp. And so once the coaches understood and the special team coaches understood what we were trying to do, and they were also involved in the design of it. Once they got a good understanding of it, it became something that was that as we see it now, right? And so it's come to fruition as a result of all of those things happening.
Well, I think it's interesting because if you look, I think last year, 96 or 97 of the top-rated programs in television were sports, and the vast majority of those were NFL games. So it seems to be people still want to come. I know ratings are up this season, and there's a good product out there. But with any good product, how do you keep an audience interested? And I think that's part of what your challenge is, to keep the game. And you're balancing, I think, old school folks going, why are you protecting the quarterback so much? Why this? Why that? I think you have an obligation to protect player safety. And I think the league has gone taken a good step in that direction over the years. And is that a collaborative? Does that come from the commissioner? Is that focus groups? Is that just your internal health and safety committees? How do you get to these decisions?
Yeah, so we come to these decisions in part with our relationship with the Players Association, right? And so for on my old side of the hat, right? So the current Players Association group have identified player health and safety as a major component for the players, right? And create an environment where players are available, and the key is to make sure that the players that people are familiar with are on the field when they come to the game, or when the game is being broadcast in their region, right? So the idea is to try to make sure that those players are available. And with our health and safety committee that's done in conjunction with the Players Association, our rules committee, which also has the rules committee. It, we create the environment that we have to have the players on the field to keep the game interesting and competitive, and so that's how we continue to just work through them in that space. To your point about uh, attracting your fan base, I mean, so we have taken and our broadcast unit has done a wonderful job with the broadcast partners, making sure the game is available on all what we call all platforms, right? So you see streaming um, with Amazon, with on Peacock. You see there some of the games are aired on Nickelodeon. It keeps a younger group in, and then our regular broadcast partners in that space. And so we're trying to be everywhere: television, your phone, your other streaming devices, and those kind of things. So wherever you are, that's where we're trying to be, right?
And I,
It's really about eyeballs, right? So yeah,
well, I'm smiling because I started in the day where the agreement between the broadcast partners and the league had one parenthetic that said, "Not on the World Wide Web."
not on the yes,
And
yeah,
then you went ahead to 2005, where there was a little more clear parenthetic that said something to the effect of, "Not for transmission over the internet." Then you go another 7 years down the road, and all of a sudden, we're starting to define, maybe you can use it. How can you use it? What way can you use it? And not having been a party to the most recent deals, it seems that finally the league has said, well, we got to deliver it to everybody on every device, everywhere, without all these guardrails. And I think the public has embraced it, especially because you're dealing with, trying to draw in a younger viewer, because the viewer is skewed generally older. But to get your younger viewer, you have to deliver it to them in the language that they know, which is streaming, which is why I think the move to Amazon has been a huge plus for the league.
yeah. It has been. It's my we talk about young people, our younger demographic. They include someone like my daughter, right? So she uh, does not necessarily when we have a television as we know it, right? But she uses her laptop, her iPad, and her phone to watch what we normally would see on television, and so we've captured that eyeball at a different location, not inside your house, but at least on those devices, and that's been a positive for sports, period, right? And
Oh,
so that's good.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that, you know, television is a very, a broad concept
Yes.
when we were pups, but now television's just a noun for that thing that hangs on the wall in your living room.
That's correct. And a monitor anywhere else, right? So,
Yeah.
beyond the football space, I would say I'm a fan of cycling. Like one of my favorite events of the year is the Tour de France, right? And I think my goal is to watch some time of the stage for all 21 stages, right? And I do find myself when it's broadcast early in the morning on the train streaming it right from DC to New York, and then by the time I get to New York, I can watch the rest of it on my monitor in the office. Now they've also taken that off of what used to be NBC. I think it was NBC Sports had it on a station called Versus, and then they moved it from Versus to USA Network, and then they highlight the special days on the weekends on NBC. And so you end up watching it on all three of those channels. And now I just watch it on, and mostly this year, it was all on Peacock, right? And so I had to stream it to watch it either at home during the week, in the office, on my phone. I guess I shouldn't say that I'm watching cycling at the football office, but it's it's sports, and it's we have lots of monitors in the building, so it should
Yeah.
be okay, right? Yeah,
So backtracking a little bit in our conversation,
yeah.
and we've alluded to the fact that before you came to the NFL, you were at the PA. Can you give us a little breakdown of your path, of how you got into the sort of the football business generally?
Oh, yeah. So it's an interesting pathway, right? And we say this to everyone. There's no clear path to whatever we're doing in the sports space. It's really about timing and opportunity. And so I always say this at the very beginning, that I'm really privileged to be in this space, right? To be in the sports space. My father was an athletic director, and it's because of that exposure that I've been able to be have a live through lots of interesting circumstances involving athletics in its time. And so it is with that privilege that I serve in this space, and I try to keep the honor of the privilege that he's provided me in this along this profession. Because of that, we had the opportunity also to have, let's say this, all of the NBA teams. We lived in Atlanta, so all of the NBA teams that came to practice or play against the Atlanta Hawks practiced at Morehouse College, where my dad coached and was the athletic director. And the Hawks practiced there. That was their practice facility before they built their current practice facility now. And that was, as we say, we're old, so this was almost from a mid late '70s to early 2000s, right? Just around mid 1995, '98, when the Hawks moved into their new arena and new stadium and new practice facility. But all the teams and the coaches and everyone would be there for practice, and I had the good chance to sit there and watch that. I had worked with got a chance to meet some good people in the sports space, including team owners, and then got good advice from a fellow by the name of Frank Layden, who used to be the Utah Jazz basketball coach, and their general manager. And we talked about careers. And when I told him at the time I was interested in being an agent, he said, "Oh, why would you want to be an agent? You should want to be on management side, and right, you don't really have any control of it." But he said, "You should be on management side." And then, as I went through college, my dad didn't necessarily want me to be in coaching, but he always told me I had to get a master's degree if I was going to coach, because those were the kind of jobs. Those jobs now require you to have your degree plus a master's degree, and I was always interested in law. So when I finished college, I ended up going to Howard University for law school, finished there, was able to start working at the NCAA in enforcement. It was a wonderful job. I had the opportunity to travel the country, visit with student athletes, high school students, what we call prospective students, the student athletes, coaches, administrators, university presidents, faculty reps, parents, alumni or boosters. And we were in the space at that time trying to figure out to find out if there were any NCAA violations, which we prosecuted if there were. From that, I had the opportunity to, this is all about networking, right? Because of that, I still had a desire to want to work in the agent space, and then my network with people at the NCAA had got a chance to meet Tom Condon, who was at IMG at the time, and met with Tom, and we hit it off, and started working with him. Worked 2 years with him in the early '90s, so between '93 and '95, right as the NFL was going into this new salary cap system. They had just come out of the lawsuit. They had just settled the lawsuit, and it was the first. When I started at IMG, it was the first year that the salary cap was going to kick into place. And so I spent 2 years with IMG, representing football players on a contract negotiation side. We had about 100 clients then. And then because of that, being involved with Tom also represented Gene Upshaw. And there was a meeting in our office in Kansas City. I got a chance to meet with Richard Burleson. They happened to be looking for another attorney. And I talked to them about that, and that kind of happened. And I was there for 17 years, and it was great. 17 years sounds like a long time, but it was really a huge opportunity to represent the full body of athletes. It was an introduction to the business of football on a different level. We had the opportunity to negotiate several collective bargaining agreements, and do all of the labor work for all the players collectively, and that was how I got into that. Um, we had change of administration, and then when Gene passed away, I ended up on working. We created a company called the McAfee Group with some former NFL PA employees, and then had good opportunity there to work with USA Track and be an legal advisor to the USA Track and Field men's and women's team. It was a athlete advisor council. That's the position that it was, and then had the opportunity to work with Rich Nichols as counsel with him as we represented the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team Players Association in their quest for equal pay, and their new CBA. And then doing those things, this opportunity came along at the NFL that I thought was I termed it a buyout. They were buying my business out, and I was going back to the league. So, and I've been there for like the last 8 years. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Sorry about that.
No, that's perfect. That's the kind of path we want to see, which leads into my whole theory about no blinders, which is to say, you never know what opportunities out there. If you're so focused, you're just focused in one area. Got to keep your head on a swivel a little bit, because there might be an
Yes.
opportunity you didn't even know existed, or a job that you didn't even is your dream job, didn't know exists. You're going to miss it if you're not going through life without blinders on. But I'm more interested from your perspective, because you've covered from college sports, the players representing as an agent, players association, working in the league office, and early on in our conversation, you talked about your current role with pathways and the change in college sports. Let's focus on that for a quick second, because obviously since Alston and in the last 3 years and a couple of months, not to mention the House et al. Potential settlements, college sports has changed a lot, because not that there's a lot of them, but you have a few millionaire college athletes, college football players. It's changed. Have you seen that change in terms of people wanting to stay in college another year to guarantee income that they might not get if they're in the NFL? Is that percolating up yet, or is that just a wait and see still?
So it's a bit of both, Bobby, because remember before the NIL piece came along, we still had COVID, right? And so COVID extended the eligibility opportunities for several student athletes, right? And so when we talk about the college space, our focus is just on, and this is kind of selfish, right? So when we listen to it, we look at it. What would be the impact on the NFL, right? And then how do we prepare for that, right? And so what we look at is here's our under our draft rules, what can change, what might change, what might not change. So our special eligibility could be impacted, right? We look at the length of the season with the college football playoffs and what impact that would have on our postseason as it relates to who's available for postseason bowl or all-star games, those that may be how they fit from player health and safety standpoint with regard to the combine, and then on the commercial side, what impact does NIL have on the players' willingness to participate in some of our commercial endeavors where they have appearances such as the draft, right? And then we look at what the new rules are that are coming into play on length of scholarship, how that might impact what our postseason scholarship information or access or benefits could be. We look at what the medical extensions might have on college football players when as they exit college football, if the medical care for them is going to extend out 3 years that beyond their last year, that may have some impact on how we have conversations with the Players Association about what the medical benefits are for players entering into the league. It certainly impacts where, as they're transitioning, our transition program where we work with uh, all of the rookies coming in on transitioning into the league, and so our player engagement unit is will be impacted by athletes being in a different position than they were once, uh, as they were before. So a player coming in with money that has had some budgeting education at the collegiate level, when he comes to us now, is not going to be the basic. Here, let's talk about a budget. They will already have had that conversation, and so it puts us in a position where we have to elevate our educational offerings and support to players. Right. It may impact our marketing groups because the licensing pieces are also now available at the college level, and so college athletes may be very familiar with um, club support. Let's say this. So their universities and the athletic department has provided them with support in the marketing space, right? How does that impact what happens at the club level when they are maybe asked to provide different type of support than they've been providing in the last few years? So we're kind of looking at all of those things to see what kind of policies we should put in place. One of the things that we did do when NIL first came out was that we passed a resolution throughout the league that the clubs, club owners, club staff cannot participate in hiring uh, draft eligible players for name, image, and likeness purposes, nor could they participate in collectives. So that was one of the things that came out of it. Our governmental affairs group is working with the state legislatures and Congress about eligibility rules, right to return to right to return to college if they decide they're not happy with the athletes aren't happy with where they got drafted. So we're working with the those states and Congress as they try to figure out what role they should play in controlling college athletics. So
And is
again,
it
I'm sorry,
fairly?
that's a long
No,
answer,
no,
but
it's
that's kind
perfect,
of,
perfect.
yeah.
But it's still relatively new, just a few years into this NIL world. But are you seeing, the NFL I know holds rookie seminars for the new players? Are you finding that you have a more sophisticated audience now, given the NIL realities, and you've had to change a bit the presentations you're making to them?
Yes. So I would say the short answer there is yes, right? So there are groups of athletes that are coming from the Power Five, now probably possibly the Power Four, that have experiences that are different than those from other institutions, right? Because of the exposure that they get, and so we have to figure out what's the makeup of that locker room at that time, and then design programs that are top of mind and relevant to those athletes at that time. So I think the union has seen some athletes express uh, challenges to the system in terms of contract negotiations and what that means. But we anticipate that the culture is going to change, and we just have to be ready to change with it.
Well, I think that you have done a lot of things between the league and the Players Association, making opportunities, I think, more robust for the players and the league in terms of where you're delivering the content, the league content, and the continued success of the NFL network, which just kind of elevates the shield, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah. But as you say, there's enough for everyone here, right? And we certainly like to try to keep that going.
Yeah, are there actual concerns in the scheduling? I know that we have the NFL postseason, which now is running a little bit longer, a little bit farther into February. But now you have this 12-game playoff in college. I mean, they're not playing on Sundays, I assume, and you're not going to play a Saturday game against a playoff game. And
Yes.
I know that's Mike and Howard are trying to figure out those schedules, but are those concerns real now that with the 12-game playoff schedule in college against your product?
Well, we have been talking about that since the conversation of expanding the college football playoffs started, and we had been working with the networks on what that scheduling might look like. We anticipated what a 12-team playoff session would look like based on what was happening, um, considering what the college space was in December, right? And so as they put their schedule together to start in mid-December for the first round and second round games, getting into what happens to be in January are the key bowl games that are also part of the semifinals and final rounds. We looked at all of that, and we had been tracking what the dates were, what the possible dates were. Were they going to play on campus on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and not Thursday and Saturdays, or Thursdays and Fridays when we had games on Saturday in December? And then you look at where the bowl games are going to be played, or the semifinal and final rounds are going to be played. They're also played in the same places we play games. So like in Atlanta, the championship game we're there, right? So that's where the Falcons play. And so our broadcast, Howard and those teams, and Hans and his team, they work with the broadcast groups to figure out what's the right windows for everything. I think they've been able to do that. And our conversations with the CFP, I think, without this causing disruption for everyone, they found a comfortable space, but we'll see. I anticipate in future years that playoff is going to go from 12 to 14 and 14 to 20 here before we get to 2030. And I say that as we look at the whole space, because
Yeah, yeah.
that's what happens. So the NCAA does not put on the college football playoff game, but they do put on the college football championship, right? So there is the old 1AA or the CF FCS group, that lower level 1AA as we knew them. That's a 24 team, I believe 24 team tournament. At the Division 2 and 3 level, they're already at 24 and 32 teams, right? And so they know how to put on a tournament, right? And so with all the things that are involved, the interest in football, it's very possible. And so we have to think of those things, before we're thinking about it. I may not be around when that happens, but those things, those things are possible, right? And then, we haven't talked about, and we'll finish this piece, but so those are the things we think about in terms of the potential scheduling conflicts, but the way we look at it is this is football, and it's good for football. And college football is, they have all day Saturday. We've got Sunday, Monday, and Thursday, and the fan base loves it. And we just have to be mindful and respectful of the fans, to give them a great product.
Well, if ratings are, as I've said before, if ratings are any indicia, you're given a good product.
Given a good product, yes.
People are coming out to watch, and we haven't even talked about the very real potential of moving to an 18-game regular NFL season, which sort of makes the schedule longer and
Yes.
more games in Europe, maybe 12 games outside the U.S. a year. There's a lot of moving parts, but I think that helps keep the sport and the business
Yes.
dynamic.
Yeah, it does keep it dynamic. Yeah. And, I would say, we didn't talk a lot about international, but the international expansion is great, right? Along with flag football, and particularly those, as we talk about participation. You maybe remember there were times where participation on football was down. We're back up to, particularly at the high school level, we're back up to very good sustainable levels now of participation in tackle football. But the development of flag football has created a space where everyone can play, and that's even more exciting, and that attracts more fans. And so, as you get younger boys and women or girls to play, it creates a stronger fan base, an affinity for the game, because they have some connection to it now. And so that's we're really excited about the advent of flag, particularly at the high school level. We're working with some of the universities to adapt it as a varsity sport. and not just a club sport. And so we're really excited that's a component of participation now,
Well,
along with the goal being at the Olympics. I know that's where you're going, right? So we're going to be right there. So we're excited about that. And there are lots of challenges that come along with it. And our events team and our football ops leadership, they've been, and the commissioner, they've been really good working with the International Federation and the IOC and the USOC and trying to get that done. And we're looking forward to LA 28.
yeah. Well, look. That was where I was going. I'm looking forward to seeing some NFL players on the U.S. team. It would be
Yes.
really fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, you think about that. Yes. It would be fun to watch. Yeah.
Put Mr. Worthy with his 4.21 speed out there in a flag football game. Somebody throwing in bombs, beating everybody over the top. It'd be
Yes.
fun. So, look, Art, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk about this, and I could talk with you about football forever. Really interesting. Real quickly, I
Yeah.
know we've gone a little long, but
That's a,
can
I've
can
got
you
as much
just
time as you have today. So
can you just give us, as the conference chair for Nashville 2025, uh, can you give us a little highlight preview of what our theme is and where we're going with it?
yes. So the theme this year for the annual conference is 50 years impacting the future of sports. Right. So the idea is that we want to celebrate or highlight the history of the SLA, and then we want to quickly focus on what on issues going forward. So we want to think prospectively. What are the key issues that we have to address now that may come up in the future? So we're looking for topics that will cover all those areas in terms of areas of expansion, new leagues, new leadership, uh, new ownership structures, and what the impact of those structures are, new financing capabilities. And so we want to be able to talk about all of those areas and throughout the conference, as well as celebrate many of those who were the founding members of the SLA, highlight many of those who have been on the board for a long time, and our presidents. And so we're looking for a wonderful time celebrating in Nashville, Music City, and everything. And so we're hopeful that we'll put together a conference that's enjoyable for everyone.
Well, last year the conference was really great. I think we elevated the program. I think we elevated the program really well, and I think there's more coming. And going to a place like Nashville is really spectacular. So I think there's a lot more to be had, a lot more
It is
fun
a
to
lot
have.
more. Yes.
But before that, in November, we have our fall symposium in New Orleans. So please check that out. For those of you that for some reason have not yet become members of the Sports Lawyers Association, please go to sportslaw.org and join. It provides a lot of information for you. There's a lot of stuff that members get that isn't open to the general viewing public. And you can become part of a great organization. And as you said, Art, early on, developing your career was about meeting people and finding opportunities in those relationships. And no one's going to argue that there's no better place to build those relationships than at the SLA.
That's correct.
So thank you very much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. Say hello to my friends at the NFL for me.
I will.
And have a great weekend.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Talk soon. Bye bye.